NFL Live is presented by KFC.
NFL Live on the air following this timeline this afternoon. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin says James Conner's ankle injury a bit more serious than initially thought. It means he will miss this Sunday's game against the Raiders. Hello, everybody. Glad you could be with us on this Tuesday. I'm Wendy Nix, Field Yates, Tim Hasselbeck, and Coach John Fox. So we'll begin with this. James Conner is out. He will not suit up for the Steelers when they face the Raiders. At least not this week. It appears uncertain after that. It's week to week. I'm pulling out the panic button. I don't know if we'll need it, but gentlemen, I say this: panic or patience for the Steelers without James Conner against the Raiders.
Yeah, I'll begin here, Wendy, and just say patience. I mean, I understand that James Conner's injury at this point of the week being ruled out probably suggests this could be more than that 1 week symptom for him, but the Raiders defensively have woes stopping anybody. Good opportunity here for Jalen Samuels, the NC State rookie for the Pittsburgh Steelers, to possibly step into a larger role. But I'm going to remain patient because the Steelers offense has so many weapons and because of the matchup they face this weekend against the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, we didn't say
anybody?
We didn't say the remainder of the season. We just simply said panic or patience against the Raiders. Important distinction.
And it is an important distinction. So without knowing how long he's out, I'm patient as well. Jalen Samuels, really good player, to be honest with you. He's a versatile player, probably more like Le'Veon Bell than James Conner is because of his ability as a pass catcher. I think he's probably a better runner than people realize. They do have Stephen Ridley there. I would expect to see both of them. But I also think it's also about the collection of that entire offense. I think it's a good offensive line. Obviously, they have a great quarterback, outstanding wide receivers. So I think they can get by without him if he, in fact, is due to return at some point.
Coach?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be 3 for 3 with the patience.
Oh, wait, you don't hit the button then. You can't hit the button.
He was off camera. It's us.
Yeah, that's all right. It doesn't count if you didn't see it, right?
That's a good point.
Okay.
But, again, they're going to rely on their pass weapons, starting with Ben. Their receiving core is just too good, too explosive, and they'll make up in the run game. They'll run their draws and screens as far as the way they take care of their backs. And really, it's going to be about their defense, and they are playing the Raiders.
And they are playing the Raiders. Listen, and all we know right now is that James Conner will miss this week. It remains to be seen what happens after that, although I don't think it's out of the question that this could linger a little bit.
Well, let's just call it what it is. If you're declaring a player out on Tuesday afternoon, he's probably not going to practice at all this week. He's already out for this week. That suggests there's a possibility that the Steelers, who, by the way, in week 15 and 16 play the Patriots and the New Orleans Saints, we'll see whether they have James Conner available for those games.
That's a whole different exercise.
Right.
The Patriots and the Saints.
Right.
We'll hold our fire, shall we? Let's take a look at the Week 13 finale. It was Monday Night Football last night. A lot at stake for these two teams as they try to fight their way into the playoff picture. It's the Redskins and the Eagles in Philadelphia here. Eagles 2nd and goal. This is a no-score game at this point. Carson Wentz to the right finds Golden Tate, who's had some trouble acclimating in that offense, but right there they get it done.
And really just see Carson Wentz. He's just so good. And so, guy his size with that type of athleticism to get the ball out there.
Some tough news for Colt McCoy. Here he is limping off the field at the start of the second quarter. He goes down on a run. His leg sort of gets caught, hits Malcolm Jenkins. He is out for the year. That means the Redskins forced to turn to their third-string quarterback, Mark Sanchez. Alex Smith, of course, out. Colt McCoy in on relief of Smith. So here comes Sanchez. Adrian Peterson. You know what? You don't need a quarterback.
Poor angle right there from the safety. But how are the Eagles not more prepared? The very first play for Mark Sanchez, you're deep in your own territory. You should be thinking, I might as well put 11 guys in the box. Challenge Mark Sanchez to beat you on the first play.
Well, it's the longest run of Adrian Peterson's career, the longest touchdown run in Redskins history. Under 2 to go in the second quarter. Darren Sproles, the handoff, gets a nice block from Jason Kelce, the 14-yard touchdown.
Yeah, they've missed Sproles. I think, both in the return game and as far as just a juice guy out of the backfield. He was a big get-back.
We pick it up after the break. Wentz here looking for Alshon Jeffrey. Josh Norman says no thank you. The interception. Redskins, however, cannot capitalize on the turnover.
Really, the red zone, the fourth down stop earlier, and then that interception is really what kept this game close for a while.
Final quarter. This time Carson Wentz looking for Jordan Matthews. He will find him. Right place, right time on the slant for the TD. 22-13. Philly opts to go for 2. And so here is that ensuing play. It's Wentz who rolls right and finds Golden Tate again. 306 yards, 2 touchdowns for Carson Wentz. The Eagles get a pivotal win. Final tally, 28-13.
First of all, resilient group, you know, and as you know, and I've said that a lot, and this group doesn't let a lot bother them. And I think things are kind of clicking a little bit.
Obviously, at 4 and 6, when we got drilled by the Saints a few weeks back, everyone had the opportunity to kind of put their heads down and sulk. But guys in that locker room really love the game of football. I think guys really love their craft, and I mean, we went to work. And obviously, 6 and 6 now, not where we wanted or thought we were going to be, but at the same time, we got the whole season in front of us.
And it's big for us, especially where we were, now winning 2 straight and trying to kind of get some momentum going. Doing it against an NFC East opponent is huge, and now kind of setting ourselves up to make a run.
Well, here we go. A look at the NFC playoff picture. Rams, the only squad that's clinched a playoff berth so far. The 7-5 Cowboys currently sit at the top of the NFC East. Philly beats Washington, bumps the Vikings back into the second wildcard spot. The Eagles are still in the hunt, but have the NFL's most difficult remaining schedule. That's according to our Football Power Index. Philly gets a win. They've won 2 in a row. Granted, it was against an undermanned Redskins team, but nevertheless, they're 6 and 6 and still not out of this thing.
They're not, and as much as you want to poke holes in their resume and say, can they make a deep run? Well, we're at week 14 of the season, and they're a game back, and they play the Dallas Cowboys this upcoming week. So anything is possible right now, and as we know in the NFL, it's all about finding a way to get into the dance. And once you do, crazy things can happen. Philadelphia looks like a very different team last year, and they still haven't found that rhythm in their passing game. And defensively, they still have major issues in the back end, covering anybody, which is mitigated by the fact that the Redskins were down to Mark Sanchez last night. But Tim, for a team that, you know, for a couple weeks people have sort of counted them or maybe even ruled them out, they have some life now going forward.
They have life, which means that, you know, there's going to be hope and optimism there, especially with the way last year went. And I think, you know, in some ways rightfully so. They're getting, you know, guys back healthier. They're starting to play themselves. I think it's probably just too late. I mean, I think when I look at their situation in the upcoming games, and I think you look at Dallas' schedule, I just think it's unlikely that it's going to end up working out for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I like the character of this football team. I think Doug Peterson has done an outstanding job. You know, there's a lot of pressure coming off of a Super Bowl, and I just like the character of him. I mean, it starts with Carson Wentz. You know, watch the improvement in him. You know, the guys supporting cast getting better. I thought the real difference, and you're right, I believe with a couple of those scoring opportunities that turned to not, you know, that could have been a blowout.
Yeah.
And that's a good defense. Let's not kid ourselves with the Washington Redskins. They're a good defensive football team. But, you know, you watch Carson getting out of the pocket. He feels more comfortable. He's throwing guys open. You look at the receivers catching a lot of very heavily contested balls. Even the two-point play to Golden Tate, the touchdown pass to Golden Tate early in the game. I just kind of like this team. The big negative is, like Field said, is the defense. And I think that secondary and that long run, I mean, that's an 8-man box, you know, middle field safety defense, and just a really poor angle by the free safety to make that tackle.
Well, certainly a good sign to see Golden Tate sort of integrated into that offense, but I think, Tim, you alluded to it might just be too late. I mean, there's just a lot of ground to cover in a minimal amount of time, but you never know. They do, however, as I mentioned before, have an extremely difficult last few games. Now to some serious news. The NFL considering 3 separate off-the-field incidents as it works toward a final decision regarding discipline for Kareem Hunt. This is according to sources close to the situation. The result likely, though, to be a multi-game suspension that stretches into next season. Kareem Hunt had until 4 o'clock Eastern yesterday to clear waivers. He did, and he went unclaimed. Dan Graziano has been reporting on this story. He joins us now. And Dan, at least walk us through what the next step will be.
Well, Wendy, the next step is an investigation by the NFL, which is already underway, and then ultimately a decision on discipline. You know from Friday that he's on the commissioner's exempt list, which is basically paid suspension while the league investigates and decides on further discipline, which in this case is likely to be a suspension. Now, how long it takes to reach that conclusion, we don't know, because the information about the January incident that TMZ reported yesterday is fairly fresh. The league knew about the June incident, already interviewed him about it earlier this season. And of course, they knew about the incident that was depicted on the video that we all saw Friday, the incident from February. So they've done some work on this, need to do more. Ultimately, you're looking at probably a lengthy suspension. And the reason the speculation is that it stretches into next year is because in these violent incidents, the baseline suspension is 6 games. There are aggravating circumstances in this case, i.e. multiple incidents, that can make the suspension longer. And he was put on commissioner's exempt with 5 games left in this season. So even if he gets credit for quote-unquote time served, 6 or more games would stretch into next year. And I think he cleared waivers, as you mentioned. Teams who are thinking about maybe signing him will probably want to wait to see what the league is going to do before making that decision.
And Dan, you mentioned this, but we'll just underscore it one more time. You don't have any idea of a timeline, how long this might take before they come to a conclusion on what type of discipline is necessary.
No, I mean, when you talk to people close to this situation, I mean, they all said the league wants to make sure and get it right. And obviously, this is a situation where within the past 4 or 5 days, new information seems to be coming out an awful lot. So if you're the NFL, you don't want to be in a position of reaching a conclusion, establishing a suspension, and then finding out something that you didn't already know. So it's important for the league at this point to continue to be thorough as they conduct further investigations.
Dan, thank you. Still to come on NFL Live, the latest on Mitch Trubisky's injury. If he's still out, are the Bears in trouble in terms of the playoffs? We'll take a closer look. Plus, Saquon Barkley made this defender look silly on Sunday. Where does this rank among the best hurdles this season? That's coming up.
NFL.